I think a greater need for working within the current framework towards social service was required. Development here that has to happen in a unique way. And understanding that nature has an active part in our future as well, if we are to have a future. The overall vision of India is for sustainability within the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. I think youth should get into more politics. They need not get into official politics as looking for a position. Just by being a unifying force on your own street itself adds tremendous value. Issue in what I've seen so far in politics is the problem and the solution are inside. But it's the people management that people need to learn about. We were originated in 1399 and around 1610 we shifted our capital. Much of our history was lost. Of course, it was burnt down or demolished to a great degree. Great deal of gratitude, I think, towards the vision of those leaders of those days, and this is jointly, of course, no one person builds a state, and for their inclusion and their prosperity as well, the idea of reservation was first brought in the state of Mysore. The best way we can pay that debt of gratitude is by maintaining this heritage, maintaining this edifice of Mysore, this identity of Mysore. Knowing your local history is, I think, the key aspect of this, which takes pride, because essentially you will be the one who passes it on to the next generation.
Hi everyone, this is Disha Dioxide, and today I'm going to be interviewing Yaduveer Wadiyar, who is the MP of Mysore and Kodagu. Let's hear about his journey and his experiences. As a leader who is also part of the royal family, what are some qualities you think are essential for someone in your position, sir?
I think obviously it's a unique challenge because you have to maintain two roles. One as a public leader or a public representative in terms of modern India and what is expected locally as well, and also what is expected from people at large given the heritage of the palace.
Right.
So you have to keep both viewpoints and conduct yourselves amicably in both. So as a public representative also, generally you should be accessible and available to all.
Right.
But also generally you want to stay away, and I think this is good for all public representatives, not just because you are coming from any special background,
Right.
but you want to stay away from the unnecessary controversy. You want to essentially, if you are criticizing or you are going after those opposing you, you go up according to the issue rather than attacking them personally.
Right.
So there are few things like that, for example, that we follow, which are unique there. And of course, at the same time, given the background as well, there are several issues which I think are well in line with the people of Mysore, given the association which are there. And representing that also has always been a core aspect of what I do.
And how difficult is it for you to manage both these roles, sir? Because it's a unique situation, like you said.
I don't think it's not really difficult. It's a challenge because obviously you have to maintain it both at all times. So certain aspects which are available to other politicians or certain aspects which are available to private citizens aren't fully available to you.
Right.
You're sort of stuck in between. But again, that's part of the puzzle to solve. And I think so far we've been able to maintain that dignity as well as at the same time ensure that our role as a public representative also is taken forward. Right. So I think it's a continuous process, and depending on the situation, you need to adapt to it and find a solution as to maintain both aspects.
Wonderful, sir. Looking ahead, what is your vision for Mysore, sir?
So I represent both Mysore and Kodagu, and throughout my election, I have said that I want to do an organic development, which means development not just for development's sake, but development which is in line with the aspirations of Mysore as a heritage city and Kodagu as a abode of nature, as a ensuring its natural resource and its own heritage. is also maintained and conserved as well.
Right.
So this would mean that the development here that has to happen in a unique way. It has to keep in mind not just the aspirations of humans or us as citizens here in this constituency, but also the nature around us, and understanding that that nature has an active part in our future as well if we are to have a future. So this is generally the broad construct within which I want to work. There are, of course, key projects which have already been in certain parts put into place, which have to be furthered, have been slowed due to various factors which need to be reignited. There are issues which are pending between the state government and the central government, all of which need to be resolved. So these are all within that framework I would like to work, and we're taking it forward. So overall, as a vision statement, we'd like to do an organic development of both places. And within the framework of the Prime Minister's dream of a Viksit Bharat, we'd like Mysore also, within when India reaches its 100 years, to have retained all of its charm that we had at independence, but at the same time have every facility available to a developed country within that framework.
What are some pressing issues that Mysore is facing today, and how do you plan to address them, sir?
Well, there are, of course, we look at it from the viewpoint, there are probably three viewpoints which are key to look at. One is the development side of things. So there are very many projects in place and very many more that can be done within the framework of the vision set up by the Prime Minister. These will be, of course, taken up and as per process will be continued. The second is, of course, the organizational structure within our party, which needs at all times, not just because I've come in or any other reason, but requires a constant melding and constant tinkering so that it's continued to be better. The last and key aspect of what I see for Mysore city and the surrounding area is the fact that despite the many administrative bodies that are there, the lack of elected representatives. So from the Mysore City Corporation to the many Nagar Sabhas within our city, so-called city limits, of course it is yet to be defined, to the Gram Panchayat, etc., there aren't any elected representatives, the elections haven't happened. This is an absolute hindrance to the local population because they're overly reliant on the members of the Legislative Assembly and the members of Parliament for doing work that should be essentially done at that level. So this takes away from the work of the legislators and the parliamentarians because we are spending time doing that. Secondly, only they can be aware to the micro issues that go around at their level of their wards or their constituencies within a Nagar Sabha or within a ward in the MCC. And a member of parliament, of course, looks over a much more broader, significantly larger area. And so our issues are definitely more macro, generally speaking. But because of this fact of lack of elected representatives, we are having to look at a lot more micro aspects, which obviously takes a lot more time away from the good work we can do as parliamentarians. I think this is a significant challenge that needs to be overcome, and we have to continue to bring into the minds of people, especially in Mysore, that the need for elections needs to be put in a strong word to the current authorities that are there to conduct elections so as to make this convenient for all of us. That is, I think, the most significant challenge because the issues we are all facing is the lack of elected representatives across the board.
Wonderful, sir. Are there any sustainability projects or environmental initiatives that you are passionate about?
There are plenty. So I think we have to, Mysore has, of course, fallen from the Swachh Bharat rankings from number 1 that it was to now number 24 or 26, if I recall correctly. In view of this, there is, of course, the continued efforts of Mysore being clean is being done. Nothing has changed since 2015-16 to the detriment of our rankings. Right. The fact is other cities have caught up and put into place modern facilities and modern conveniences that have ensured that cleanliness is at a better state. Cities such as Indore, etc., have become models for this. Right. Essentially, Mysore, it comes down to the fact of we have too much construction debris, which we've been unable to get rid of. And secondly, we have excess waste dumps in the Excel plant and in the several water treatment plants around Mysore, which are causing a nuisance to everyone and causing, of course, our rankings to fall. Again, this is a issue where there are non-elected representatives to continually highlight this issue to the authorities and make them work faster. So our current issues actually have a long-term solution in place, but because there is lack of direction and lack of a want to finish this faster, uh, especially because obviously people can't move to their local representative fast enough because there isn't one. This is creating a huge hindrance. So, in view of this, also we need to ensure that again this election process happens so that we can have a more sustainable Mysore as well. Because the overall vision of India is for sustainability within the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN.
Right.
So, given that fact, we are all adherent to those norms. But if there isn't an elected body to continually press on to the authorities, then it is very tough for us to control these aspects.
Right. How do you engage with the youth of Mysore, sir?
So I think youth is a continuous aspect of it. Of course, within the organization, there are the various Yuva Morcha and other youth organizations within Mysore which stay connected, and we are able to reach out far and wide towards issues, etc. And we're getting them doubly engaged as well, not just in terms of our connectivity, but getting them engaged just to create new leaders, because
Right.
that is what there is a huge lack of. We need leadership at all levels.
Right.
Other than that, we have, of course, the cleaning drives where we encourage most of the youth organizations to come and participate. We have cleaning drives across Mysore city, within the rural section and Kodagu as well. And we have the Yuva Morcha come in and add value to that as well as youth organizations as well. Other than that, of course, continually being available to them via this office and many other areas in Mysore whenever we can, and understanding youth related issues and where they are facing problems, be it unemployment, be it whatever they feel is the need of the hour. We are continually at their beck and call to ensure that we are giving them a good service.
Wonderful, sir. And regarding the same thing, what is your advice to the youth of India, sir?
I think youth should get into more politics. They need not get into official politics as looking for a position, but they can get into being political by understanding how the process of politics works, so that then they can be active contributors. Just by being a unifying force on your own street itself adds tremendous value. Knowing what your own street wants and requires and having solutions there adds tremendous values, because if you are able to solve your issues of your own street by going to your own local councillor or your own local corporator, whatever, it gives tremendous help towards someone like the MP up here, because that issue isn't under the purview of the member of parliament, and will allow the member of parliament to do actual work which benefits on the macro level, which is what truly he or she should be doing.
Right.
So I think youth should be much more active in political thinking and political thought. Alongside that, also as unofficial representatives, understanding that you are the leader in your own house and your own street, and start solving issues like that and slowly scale up. So towards this view also, we have several CSR projects that have been successful towards creating ward leaders,
Right.
towards ensuring that they are active participants in their ward. And so we are about to launch that as well.
Wonderful, sir. And would you say that problem solving is a very important skill for a leader?
Absolutely. I think the issue in what I've seen so far in politics is the problem and the solution are in sight, but it's the people management that people need to learn about. Understanding how to sit across the board, have a discussion, which you are able to convey the exact problem and the means of solution, and also amicably understand that the other party also has some sort of aspiration and some sort of want in that. So I think people management is something that they need to understand, and together with that, they can start solving their own problems. Because again, democracy means not just giving your vote; it's an active everyday participation as well towards this construct of ensuring a Viksit Bharat.
Wonderful, sir. How does social media shape the public perception of royal families today, sir? What's your opinion?
I think it's given us a good grounding, in the sense that now you can show that yes, there was a glamour and a certain flamboyance associated with it, but that aspect of itself, especially in like states like Mysore, was part and parcel of the heritage itself.
Right.
and that did not necessarily mean that you had endless streams of money or wealth, which afforded you very luxurious lives.
Right.
It also, social media, what it has shown, particularly in Mysore, is the great amount of good work that was done. Uh, and also, it has highlighted the fact and brought, I think, attention to very many people that it isn't a particular system that is outdated or obstinate.
Right.
Rather, the people who are involved. So, in any system, you can deliver a good service.
Right.
I mean, you have Cuba, for all its wrongs, there are very many great services there, from healthcare to education, that are given free across the board. Mysore state itself, even though monarchies are considered, of course, now absolutely obsolete, by all experts' opinions and every historian's opinions, and by general opinion of the populace, and even, of course, the mandate I myself received,
Right.
it is a fact in that the palace, in its former avatar of Mysore state, did good work. So I think social media has helped to this aspect very well, and it has showed that it is the system and the individuals within the system who make the difference, rather than blaming either a democracy or a monarchy or whatever it may be.
Wonderful. As the head of the Wadiyar dynasty, could you talk about the legacy of your family and how they shaped Mysore as a city, the previous kings?
Well, the previous avatar of Karnataka was the state of Mysore, the kingdom of Mysore. It has undergone many changes and many, of course, ravages, of course, through the vicissitudes of time. But generally, we claim that we were originated in 1399, and around 1610, we shifted our capital. Of course, those records are largely unavailable to us, as if whether it was this side where the now fort around the palace is, or behind the temple, behind the Chamundi Hills. And we shifted our capital to Srirangpatna, where, of course, there's large amounts of evidence and source documents to show that history of from Raj Wadiyar all the way up to Khasa Chamaraj Wadiyar 9. Of course, towards the end of that era, even though we had a glory period there as well under Ranadira Kantir Narasimharaj Wadiyar, Doddevraj Wadiyar, and Chikdevraj Wadiyar, Raj Wadiyar himself, and those were became probably the greatest polity within the region of the Deccan at that time. Eventually, as is in many cases, the rulers became incompetent, and it was or rather, in our case, it was a boy ruler who came to the throne because of, obviously, the elder ruler passing away very early.
Right.
And that caused usurpers to come into light, and they were able to hold on. And then eventually, Hyder and Tipu, of course, the infamous duo, took over Mysore for a period of around 35 to 40 years, during which much of our history was lost. Of course, it was burnt down or demolished to a great degree. After which, of course, their defeat, we established the state of Mysore, re-established rather the state of Mysore, but no longer our capital was in Srirangpatna, but rather the city of Mysore here. And today's modern Mysore was developed, of course, within a more modern framework. And much of what we see today within the city of Mysore was developed within that period from 1799 to 1950. So I think uniquely in our case within Mysore state, which stretched all the way up to Davangere in the north, and current borders on the east and the south, as well as all the way up to Kodagu in the west. Great deal of gratitude, I think, towards the vision of those leaders of those days. And this is jointly, of course, no one person builds a state. The Maharajas, the Devans, the many administrators, all of whom worked within that framework and vision of building a model state of Mysore, built up this wonderful state. And I think we all owe a debt of gratitude to that. And the best way we can pay that debt of gratitude is by maintaining this heritage, maintaining this edifice of Mysore, this identity of Mysore, as we build within that framework the necessities for a modern state as well.
Could you talk about some specific developments that the kings, took so that people were getting employed and things, like the sandalwood factory, for example?
So yes, the sandalwood factory, of course, was one of the sort of innovations or entrepreneurial ideas of the time that gained a lot of prominence. I believe the Maharaja was gifted a box of scented soap from someone from France, I believe. And he had said, why don't we use the excess we have of sandalwood? And due to the World War I at the time, there were constraints, and there were, of course, like we have today, the restrictions on sale, etc., by international organizations. Similarly, we had the same thing due to geopolitics of the time. So I think that time they envisioned, and a gentleman called, as nicknamed Soap Shastri, who had studied in the UK, etc., came back to the Indian Institute of Science, and in many ways was the first sort of startup really to have an entrepreneurial idea, an innovative idea, and inculcate it within the framework, of course, of a state-owned company. And industrialization like that across the board was given a big impetus. The Mysore silks was there, Mysore steel was there, Mysore cements was there, the Mysore towels. I mean, you could go on naming. Mysore coffee was another brand. And so this idea of building brand Mysore was a very big push at the time. And given the fact that there weren't very many big corporates or even company law framework, it was all structured within the state-owned companies at the time. And of course, for a brief period of time up till independence, they managed to do significantly or quite well, actually, within, even despite being state-owned companies. Aside from that, large irrigation projects were taken up, small irrigation and large irrigation projects, to ensure farmers' welfare. In fact, cropping patterns across the board were changed. All of the cropping patterns we have today come from the times of the state of Mysore. And then above and beyond that, we had development, like for educational institutions. You have the University of Mysore, you have the Indian Institute of Science, you had compulsory education within lower and middle school. You had reservation being brought into focus, so that, backward classes, which in that state of India at the time, which was the Oriental era, had suffered significantly more than other times. And for their inclusion and their prosperity as well, the idea of reservation was first brought in the state of Mysore. So policy-wise, development-wise, industrialization-wise, also within the preservation of nature as well, nobody had the tiger blocks that Mysore state had. So today, if Karnataka has this many tiger reserves, out of the 6 that are there in Karnataka, 5 are within the old state of Mysore. So if it's there, that is because jointly nature also, we understood that we are stewards of nature as well during the state of Mysore. So there was an all-around holistic development. And I mean, I'm not saying everything was perfect, but we were as close as we could be to it.
They were way ahead of their time.
In many ways, you could say it was a very progressive in the right way, progressive towards development, but at the same time rooted again in that Indian culture and recognizing that this is an Indian civilizational heritage that we are taking forward. So while at the same time there was progressiveness in the idea of development, there was a very much an idea and an understanding of Indian thought as well, and Indian philosophy and Indian civilizational aspirations within that framework.
How important is it for young people today to understand the history of Mysore and its royal family, sir?
I think overall, not just for Mysore, obviously Mysore, for Mysoreans, you need to know your history, because many times it is also the contribution of your own ancestors who were part of that state. I don't know how many people have come up to me who have taken pride in the fact that their grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather were also part of some process, whether it be the silk factory, whether it be some position within the palace office, whether they looked after some aspect. All of it jointly was what created such a good state. So I think knowing your local history is, I think, the key aspect of this, which takes pride, because you will be the conserver of that history. Essentially, you will be the one who passes it on to the next generation. So that aspect of it, I think, is very key for wherever you are. It can be, some corner of India as well. But knowing your local history is very important, because India is so diverse and has been lived in for so long. There are histories to every village. There are histories to every household itself. So that aspect of it is, I think, a key feature that we need to ensure that we are conserving. In the case of Mysore, the reason why the history should be remembered is to take great pride in the fact that, and within, of course, there was at the time an outsider at the helm of affairs in Delhi, but Mysore had its own framework. It was an independent state within a treaty to Delhi, and as an independent actor was able to create a model state.
Right.
And I think we should take pride in that. If the fact that we are able to do that, given the constraints of British India, there should be no reason why the modern state of Karnataka shouldn't be able to do much greater
Right.
within free India.
Right.
So the fact that Karnataka has been regressing in many areas of human development index, in many areas of administration, the fact that we are now ranked sort of a mid-tier state where we were one of the first few, are causes for concern.
Right.
So these aspects of it certainly need to be looked into, and I think history has valuable insights toward reconfiguring the pathway back to where we want to be as a model state.
Wonderful. What does royalty mean to you today?
So I think it's conserved within the limitation of the various celebrations or the various festivals that happen in the palace. That aspect of it obviously has a regal or a royal semblance. But again, it's part and parcel of the identity of Mysore. Even today, Mysore, the city is, the tagline is, it's the royal city.
Right.
So as much as you'd like to call, those things outdated, the idea of Mysore and the charm of Mysore comes from the fact that it is a royal city.
Right.
So I think if it's used in the right context and used towards the right processes and the right actions, it will certainly yield tremendous benefits to our city.
Right.
And there are innumerable cities that have had royal patronage and have benefited tremendously in terms of tourism, in terms of economy, and that aspect of it, Mysore should leverage to its utmost, because I think nobody has such a unique southern royal patronage other than Mysore.
Wonderful, sir. How do you balance tradition and modernity in your role, sir?
I don't think there's necessarily any balance. There's nothing in our tradition that isn't concurrent with modern times.
Right.
Everything within our tradition has been relevant from time immemorial to this day.
Right.
The practices that are within, whether you want to say our religious fold or our traditional fold of our country, are very much in line with whatever we do today. There is nothing that it takes away from modern India, and there's nothing in those practices that take away from modern India as well.
Right.
There have crept in certain discrepancies or certain, let us say, issues that have come up which are to do with social structuring, etc. Those, of course, we are opposed to, and we look to reconstruct it, and that has been going on since the time of my forefathers. It's a continuous process, and now within the framework of the Constitution of India, we can further eradicate those issues as well.
Right.
But other than that, I think the core practice and what was the original intent of Indian tradition is absolutely concurrent with what is modern India as well.
Mysore is obviously known for its rich cultural heritage. In what ways do you think the royal family can contribute to keeping this alive, sir?
Well, I mean, I think we should do a better job of this is both sides, of course, being in line with the governance here towards ensuring the people of Mysore continue to play an active part in whatever is the celebrations that happen in the palace. We are a private entity, and we'd like to keep everything private within modern India as well. But I think given the fact of the association we have with the people of Mysore, we have never limited it, but due to constraints of modern times, we've had to obviously keep it much more private than I think the people of Mysore would like. Right. So in that aspect, I think we can have them more engaged. Aside from that, I think, again, highlighting our history and highlighting the identity and the fact that it's a joint custodianship, not singularly owned by the palace, but by the people of Mysore and the entirety of Karnataka as well, is something that should be highlighted going forward.
What inspired you to enter politics, sir, as a Maharaja?
I think a greater need for working within the current framework towards social service was required. I think politics is a tool towards making or bringing in socio-economic change, and a tool can be used, of course, both ways. It can be used to inflict harm, and it can be used to do good as well, and protect others as well. So I think used in the right way, there is no better tool nowadays towards shaping policy, towards ensuring that the people of our city or the people of this country are getting a good service. And so, given the fact that it is now the official form of service, I decided that now time has come to enter politics.
Do you think that you, as a person from the royal family, can act as a bridge between the people and the government? Because sometimes the government may seem unapproachable to the people.
That is essentially our role. The center, especially central government, obviously is quite far away in Delhi, and from this viewpoint, I think acting as a bridge is the key aspect of what we have to do. And so the demands of the people here or the aspirations of the people here will reach me, and I get to present them in Delhi,
Right.
and that is the core of the service or what we have to do as public representatives.
I think we are very lucky to have you, sir.
Thank you very much. Very kind of you.
Finally, what hobbies do you enjoy when not fulfilling royal duties? Or
So I do obviously play my guitar sometimes whenever I get free. I enjoy reading. Now, of course, as a part of understanding our political history of India, understanding general politics as well, and economic questions that may come in the future as well. So reading has always been a tool, again, even though it's a hobby, towards enhancing your own knowledge and your own hypothesis of how these things work, especially given the fact that I'm still new to politics.
right.
Other than that, of course, some sport and some exercise always a key aspect of it. I've been playing tennis for a long time. I haven't got the chance to do much over the last 9 months, but I hope now that things and routines are coming into place, we'll be able to inculcate that as well. Other than that, of course, we enjoy every other thing that others do. Mysore is abundant with cafes, with good eating places now. So as a foodie also, you can enjoy yourself here in Mysore if you have the time. Yoga is a great part of to play in Mysore, and that has always been something I've liked to do, at least, even if it is just 15-20 minutes of it. Something I like to do every day. So these are, broadly speaking, what hobbies I have or would like to pursue. But yeah, given the time constraints, it's very hard to do any of them.
Fine. Thank you so much for giving us the time of the day today, sir. Since you're a busy person, I'm really appreciative of this. And I think it's a unique view into the politics situation of Mysore from the perspective of a royal person. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and of course, best wishes towards your endeavor of this online platform that you've created towards interviewing us and giving us a chance, of course, to reach out to you. Wish you the very best.
Thank you.